Has your business been affected by COVID-19? The Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center is available to assist entrepreneurs and small businesses in the U.S. Virgin Islands. The VI-SBDC is sustained by the University of the Virgin Islands and the U.S. Small Business Administration and collaborates with local agencies to support the small business community. The VI-SBDC is nationally accredited and provides free consulting, business education training, and technical assistance. Attend workshops with subject matter experts from both the public and private sector. From idea generation to exit strategies, the staff at the VI-SBDC is ready to assist you. Now is the time to contact them, so don't wait. Call or email them to find out how they can help your business grow and succeed.
Good morning and welcome to Webinar Tuesday. My name is Mary Jo Williams. I'm one of the business advisors at the Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center, and I will be your facilitator and moderator for today's session. Today's presenter is Mr. Wayne Huddleston, the Senior Area Manager for the U.S. Small Business Administration in the Virgin Islands. And without any further delay, Wayne, I turn the program over to you.
All right, thank you, Mary Jo. Good morning, everyone. As Mary Jo said, my name is Wayne Huddleston. I'm with the U.S. Small Business Administration. The SBDC is kind enough to host us every week to talk about a different program at SBA. So right now, this week, we're going to talk about our 8A Business Development Program, which is a great tool or resource for you if you are interested in federal government contracting. Next week, we're going to have another one on HubZone and then another one on how to certify as a woman-owned business. But today, I want to focus strictly on the 8A Business Development Program and how you can leverage that to help you in the government contracting realm, federal government contracting realm. So the first thing I want to share is that there are what we call targeted set-asides for federal contracting officers to provide federal contracts to small businesses. So these set-aside percentages change depending on the agency, but overall, this is the federal government wide goal that the federal government has to awarding contracts to certain socioeconomic groups. The goal is to award 5% to women-owned small businesses, 5% to what we call small disadvantaged businesses, of which 8A is included, HubZone businesses, 3%, and service disabled veteran-owned businesses, small businesses at 3%. These are important designations to have. It is conceivable that someone could have all of these designations, which would be a very powerful set of certifications to have as a small business if you're competing for other federal contracts, because these all have separate advantages to them. And I'm not going to go into all the separate advantages. I'm going to focus on 8A today. But these are powerful certifications to have, and 8A is one of them that you may be able to qualify for. So we're going to talk about that one in more detail today. I'm going to turn my camera off for just a moment. I'm kind of looking back and forth on some things, but I'll be here. So, okay, so I want to talk about the business development program. Its goal is to assist socially and economically disadvantaged owned small businesses and help them compete in a federal marketplace. That's the main purpose of what it does. If you receive an 8A certification, one of the great advantages to it is that you have the potential to receive sole source contracts, which are what we call no competition contracts, all the way up to $4 million for goods and services and $7 million if you're a manufacturer, depending on the contract. And as I mentioned, there are goals for this. It is a 9-year program. The first 4 years are considered a developmental stage, and the last 5 years are considered a transitional stage to transition out of the program. But once you complete the 9 years, then you're no longer part of the program. That doesn't mean you're not a minority or disadvantaged business. It just means you're not receiving the technical assistance that the 8A program provides. And certainly after 9 years, you should be at a point as a business where you are be able to thrive on your own without that additional assistance, even though assistance is still available in other ways. So there we go. Okay, so there are a number of requirements here, but this is just kind of restating the objectives. It's one, to provide management and technical assistance to help you compete for opportunities. Our goal is to make sure a lot of the entrepreneurs out there understand and succeed in government contracting. We want small businesses as a whole to succeed in government contracting. And we certainly want to provide additional assistance to those that may have been disadvantaged in some way in the past to level the playing field, so to speak. And then we want to assist and graduate firms to allow them to thrive in the program and continue to compete even when they're out of the 8A program. So first part is to ascertain whether the 8A program is appropriate for you as a business. There are some requirements. So if you have not started your business or you are just now starting your business, 8A program is probably not the best fit for you. There needs to be at least 2 years of experience shown in the primary NAICS code, what we call the North American Industry Classification System code. So when you establish your business, you register in what's called the System for Award Management. You select the industry that you're in, and you will have to show through tax returns before you apply for the 8A program that you have competed in this field for at least 2 years. Now, there are some exceptions. So there are, if someone has not run their business in this field, but they have been working in this field for 2 years, that window may be able to be shortened a bit. But the most important factor is showing that you can not only do the work in that industry, but also run a business in that industry, because there's a big difference between cooking the chicken and running the chicken shack. So there's a big difference there. So they want to see that you have that experience running a store, performing in your industry, or not store, business, and performing in your industry and being successful from there. They need to show that you can have a balance between your commercial and government business. If you've been operating strictly commercially, and this is your first time to really grow in the government world, we want to see that you can still, if you receive contracts and start competing in that sphere, you can still maintain that balance. We want to show that you have a history and an ability to market your firm's business. Some people believe that once you get into 8A program, you can sit back and the business is just funneled your way, and that is not the case. It is important to understand how to market your business and to develop that plan. As I mentioned before, you must show that you can operate in your NAICS codes. You must also show that you're socially and economically disadvantaged. So for the purpose of an 8A firm to get that designation, you must be able to show that at least 51% of the business is unconditionally and directly owned by one or more socially and economically disadvantaged individuals who are U.S. citizens. So essentially, that means if you are a part of a racial or ethnic category that has been shown to have prejudice or cultural bias within American society, because of your identification as a member of a certain group, then that qualifies. So if you are designated Black or Hispanic, they will consider that as historically disadvantaged in American society or excluded in the past because of identification with a certain racial group. So if you are owner of a business or you have a partner in the business and at least 51% of the owners of that business can identify as Black, then you can receive that. Well, you comply with that requirement for an 8A designation, and there are other designations as well. For those that are claiming the disadvantage in the business and the owners, the net worth of those individuals must be less than $250,000. And then after admission to the program, the net worth must be less than $750,000. So to even start the program, your net worth has to be less than $250,000. And then at any time, if during the business your net worth goes beyond $750,000, then you're no longer in the program because the federal government will deem that as being successful. Now, when you're determining that net worth, it does exclude your primary personal residence. So you can exclude that from the net worth requirement, but that must be shown during the application process. All right, next part. As I mentioned before, it is important that the business has a plan and strategy to proactively self-market their programs or services in order to succeed. That is an important part of the application process. You should identify which buyers, which federal agencies buy your product or service and understand how to get to know them. You must identify the contracting procedures of those agencies, focus on opportunities in your niche and prioritize. You'll need to know how to make contacts, find out if your target agencies require you to register in their database. You'll need to do a lot of work to develop that plan to show that you have an understanding of how to self-market. Now, once you're in the program, you are assigned technical advisors that will help you along that process as well and further narrow down your plan, help you make personal connections with federal contracting officers. But still, in the beginning, you must show that you have the ability to develop a marketing plan to self-market, not that you'll be relying on others to market your agency, because SBA will not market your agency for you. It will help tee up the opportunities and help you compete and understand how to market yourself, but it will not market them for you. So as I mentioned before going through this 8A certification process, you want to ensure that you understand what it takes. It is a little bit of a lengthy process. This is a powerful designation that comes with a lot of federal assistance in the federal contracting world. So there is a lot of vetting to make sure that the businesses that are in the program sufficiently meet the requirements, and there's a lot of paperwork and things you're going to have to submit. Certainly encourage you to fairly assess whether you are at the stage where you are ready for the program before you start going through that process, because it can be frustrating if you start pulling together all the paperwork and then you realize that there is a part of the requirements that you don't sufficiently meet. You'll need to do that ahead of time. So you'll have to determine whether you have the capacity to deliver on federal contracts. If you have never serviced contracts of any meaningful size before, this is not the program to help you build that capacity. It helps you build that capacity, helps you grow that capacity, so to speak, but it doesn't help you establish that capacity in the first place. You have to have some capacity to show in the beginning. You'll have to show that you have some sufficient cash flow. If you are not making any money or have never made any money, this is not the business for you. It needs to show that you have some cash flow and that you can service contracts going forward. And do you have the ability do you have some past performance to show? You'll want to be able to show that you can do that in the past and you've demonstrated some successful past performance in your industry and in your business. And the last thing, are you open to advice on growing your business? It is important that once a business is accepted, and I've mentioned this before, and I'll probably mention a few more times before this presentation is over, this is not, once you get the designation, it does not open the spigot to federal contract dollars just flowing your way. It is important to understand that there is a process there. You'll still need to work pretty hard. There is technical support and advice that is given to you, and you'll need to be open to that advice. We will pair you up with what we call business opportunity specialists, who their full-time job is assisting 8A firms. They understand the government contracting process. They are well connected with federal contracting officers. They know what they're going to be looking for. It is their job to get to know your business and help advise you along the way to compete effectively for those businesses. So there are a number of benefits that it has. Of course, once you get to the point that you've qualified and you know that you can meet the minimum requirements for the 8A business, there's a lot of great things you can get. First, as the SBA assistance. As I mentioned, we have what are called business opportunity specialists that provide direct assistance. And I'll give those names to the ones at the ones we have at the end of this program. And they assist 8A firms all the time. We also have what are called mentor-protege agreements in the 8A program. In the first 4 years of the program, as I mentioned before, that is a developmental stage of the program. It is expected that the ones that come in to that program in the first 4 years, while they may have shown that they have the ability to serve contracts and have the capacity to perform and have sufficient cash flow to stay afloat, that they often don't have the connections in the federal contracting world to know how to compete effectively or how to partner with other businesses and make those arrangements without getting, before you can get real sole source contracts. So we have what we call a mentor-protege program, where 8A applicants or 8A participants that have been in the program for a longer amount of time will help mentor incoming 8A programs or 8A businesses and help them develop their strategy. Sometimes there's opportunities for the mentor and the mentee to collaborate on a specific contract, or perhaps they can share some lessons learned in the early stages for the other business. All sorts of things, but there are opportunities there, opportunities for joint ventures, as I mentioned. But the main thing is you will get assistance in developing and executing an effective strategy to compete in the government contracting world. And there is a proven return on investment on the 8A program. When you look at the businesses that started the program and were accepted into it, and from the time they began to the time they graduated, there is a significant difference in the return on investment for the vast majority of the businesses that compete or that participate in that program. As I mentioned before, you must be socially and disadvantaged. That is an important key for the program. So there are designated groups where social disadvantage is assumed by the federal government. That is for Black, Asian, Hispanic, Native American, and what we call subcontinent Asian Americans. So if you're one part of those groups, then you don't have to worry about step 2 here. You are considered socially disadvantaged, and as long as your business is at least 51% owned by someone in that category, then you will be fine. If you are not part of one of those designated groups, you will need to show through a preponderance of the evidence that because of due to race, ethnicity, gender, physical handicap, or long-term environmental issues, you have been discriminated against or not been able to compete effectively for contracts and had a negative impact for your ability to advance as a business. So you'll have to prove with evidence on that. You'll also have to show, in addition to social disadvantage, you must show economic disadvantage. Your personal net worth, assets minus liabilities must be less than, I know I said, sorry, it's $250,000, $750,000 to continue in the program, but it's $250,000 to start the program. The 3-year average income for your business is $350,000 or less, not more than that. And the fair market value of all assets in your business is $6 million or less. If you surpass any of those thresholds, then your business is not considered economically disadvantaged, and you would not be able to, well, you could apply, you just wouldn't be accepted for it. I wouldn't want you to waste your time on it. So in addition to those are the big requirements, but you also must meet some other ones as well. You must show a small business size standard. We have size standards that we designate at SBA that the federal government uses to draw the line between a business and a small business. Here in the Virgin Islands, almost every business is going to be small. Of course, some of the bigger, there's a few bigger ones, but really, if you have less than 100 employees, it does depend on what industry you're in. But as a general rule, if you have less than 100 employees and your business makes less than $5 million a year, in many cases, you can be considered small. In most cases, you can be considered small, but you must look that up. We have a size standards chart at our website that you can confirm if you think there's some sort of question as to whether you meet that standard. There is the ownership requirement that I mentioned earlier. At least 51% of the business must be owned by someone who is both socially and economically disadvantaged. The ownership is important, but that person must also control and manage the business. So if you are, if you do not have that ownership threshold, and one of your partners who's a silent partner, or maybe a good friend of yours, or someone you can bring into business, you cannot just transfer ownership and make it reach that 51% threshold if those people are not in control and management of the business. So the 51% that meet that threshold must also show that they have managerial control and management of the business, that when they make decisions, that's what's implemented. It's not that just they have a voice at the table or that they're a silent partner. They must be actually managing the business. You must meet the business requirements. So there are requirements for the types of businesses. So if you are, of course, in a legal business or something like that, that can't be served, can't serve federal contracts. And, you know, like for instance, I know marijuana industry is becoming bigger in some states, and here in the territory, there's been discussion to expand and legalize marijuana here in the territory, but that would still be illegal for the federal government, regardless of what any state or territory does. So if that, until that changes, that would not be a eligible business. Must show that the business and owners of the business are of good character. So there is a point where there will look into the background of the owners if there are significant issues or a history of those owners having character flaws. So for instance, you know, a criminal record or things that show that it has had issues in the community that creates a substantial negative character flaw in the eyes of the reviewer, that could be an issue. And so if you have, what I always suggest to people, if you have anything in your past that could impact that character assessment, you want to be completely honest with the reviewers of your file. You know, there are things that are easily explained, and what is found out there in the media or in record search sometimes don't tell the full story. So you want to make sure that you explain things if there are things that could be perceived as negative. The last thing you want to do is act like they don't exist, because they will be found. And then if you don't meet any of the other eligibility criteria I spoke about, such as the economic thresholds or other things, then you can be held to not be in the program. So the application process. So before the application process, you should register in SAM, the System for Award Management. I believe it was last week or the week before, we had a presentation on how to register in SAM. The first part of that is getting what we call your DUNS number. That is all done at SAM.gov. It's easy to do. You can get your DUNS number. You can identify what we call the NAICS codes, the North American Industry Classification codes, and complete your registration in SAM. Once you apply for the registration in SAM, all that information is logged, and it's kept there, and that's your first step. And then you'll want to start to pull together your information for an application. So you can go to certify.SBA.gov. On that site, you can take an assessment to determine whether you are ready. So if you take that assessment for 8A, you answer all the questions, and at the end of that program, it says, yes, you could be a potential business that could gain certification on an 8A program. You can continue on. The very first thing you should do is review the application guide. Before you start gathering your supporting documentation and going through the process, you want to read through that guide thoroughly. Make sure you understand what supporting documentation is needed. And then you can start pulling that together and then start applying online. The entire process can be done online at certify.SBA.gov. There's a lot of resources there. If you have any questions in the process along the way, if you have questions registering in SAM, there is on the SAM website, it'll tell you, but there's something called the Federal Service Desk, and they assist people with registrations in SAM. They also have some basic knowledge on the 8A and other certifications, although they cannot do it for you. And then on our certify.SBA.gov site, there are a lot of not only the application resource guides for the particular programs, but there's a lot of frequently asked question documents on there that can give you a lot of information on how to do that. So that's where you submit your program. It pulls information once you begin the certification process in certify.gov. You'll be asked to put in your information from SAM, and then it will automatically migrate information over from SAM that you've put in there, so you don't have to duplicate it again on our site. But you'll want to go through that process there through our site. It's almost all online. There are some forms that you'll still have to upload, but many of the forms, if it's at all possible for us to accept your signature and you fill in forms online, then you wouldn't have to upload some of those. There are still some things you're going to have to upload in that process, your identification, some tax returns, those types of things, but many other things, the process has been streamlined on that site, so you don't have to do it. So once you go through that process, and it does take some time, it's not something that you can apply for this week and get an answer within the next few weeks. It's something that typically takes months. There's a large queue. These approvals are not handled locally. They have to go through our headquarters. As I mentioned before, this is a powerful designation. So there's a lot of vetting and review on these programs. So you want to make sure that you understand it is a long process. But once you do get through that process, you can qualify for set aside or sole source contracts, because that designation verifies for contracting officers that you can meet the requirement for a small disadvantaged business. And many contracting officers have, as I mentioned before, their goals for meeting, or their goals that they have for the number of contracts they provide to certain designated groups, small and disadvantaged businesses being one of them. So this could be help for you. There's also opportunity to build capacity and grow by establishing joint ventures and participating in a mentor protege program, as I mentioned before. This is, I think, one of the biggest helpful tools to that program is once you're in the program, being matched up with businesses that are later in the program or have already been successful and gathering that advice and mentorship from those businesses is it's hard to put a price on that. It's just a lot of people participate in a program that I've spoken to have said that that has been the biggest thing that they got out of the program. And then there's access to management and technical assistance programs. Of course, all of SBA resources. As I mentioned before, you're matched up with what we call a business opportunity specialist who can help you with all sorts of questions or advice with regards to the contracting process. But they're also SBA employees, and so they're connected with all of us. So they understand our guaranteed loan programs, bonding assistance. If you're like a construction firm who needs bonding, they understand our programs we have to assist in that. They can give you a ton of great help and guidance as you begin competing for federal contracts. As I mentioned, this has 2 stages. The first is a 1 to 4 year stage. And that's what we consider developmental. And then from 5 to 9 years, it's considered transitional. So by the time you get to that 5 to 9 year period, you should be well on your way to securing contracts on your own. There are many times businesses that will start in a developmental stage, and by the time they get to year 5 or 6, they have surpassed the upper threshold to remain in the program. And so they'll just transition out of the program. Maybe it's in year 6 or 7, or even earlier. And that's fine. That's fantastic. You don't necessarily have to stay all 9 years in the program. But the goal is within those 5 to 9 years, helping you get your business to a point where it is competing effectively for contracts, winning those contracts, and able to do it on its own. And during this program, while you're in there, you still must maintain things. So, of course, you've got to maintain your SAM profile. You don't have to do it constantly. You don't have to do it every month, but you just need to maintain that it's there, that you've completely filled it out. There are things in this SAM profile that allow you to fill out a capabilities narrative. You want to make sure that that is current and accurate. There's a lot of assistance you can get, guidance you can get on that from our business opportunity specialists. And then you got to keep SBA informed of all material changes in the business. If you've moved, if you've changed ownership, whatever it may be, we want to make sure that you maintain that eligibility. So you want to make sure that SBA is kept apprised of all changes, and you want to keep in good contact with your assigned business opportunity specialists along the way. So these are, as I mentioned, the 2 business opportunity specialists that serve this area. They are, they live and work in our Puerto Rico office, but they also serve the Virgin Islands as well. Eduardo Velez Torres, that is his email and that is his phone number. You can feel free to contact them at any time. Of course, they primarily assist people that are in the 8A program, but if you are completing your application, have any questions or issues, feel free to reach out to Eduardo or Mariano at mariano.torresfeliciano@SBA.gov. Either one of them would be happy to help guide you and answer your questions if you're getting stuck. They, of course, they cannot do the application for you, just like they can't provide you contracts to your front step, but they can certainly help you along the way, and that is their full-time job. That is what they're here for, is to help people with government contracting. Now, if you have other questions specific to the Virgin Islands, you have both Lisa and I. Our emails are here, our phone numbers are here. That's my cell phone, and that's Lisa's cell phone. You can always reach out to us. I encourage you to email us if you have a question, because oftentimes it helps if we can link you directly to someone through an email, and it's typically a lot easier. But we can help you if you have questions about contracting locally. We can help with that a little bit. Of course, Eduardo and Mariano are the contracting experts in our office, but we certainly have knowledge of what's going on here locally and can assist you in that process. But when it comes to the application, I would suggest that you work with them. And then finally, there is the Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center, which of course everyone here should know about, because this is the host of our program today. You can contact them for an appointment. And I suggest you do that whether you're gonna go for an 8A business designation or not. There is a lot of information that applies to not only 8A businesses, but to any business. So when you are assessing your ability to service contracts, or you are writing out your capabilities narrative, or you are looking through your financial statements to make sure that you have sufficient cash flow to be a viable business to compete in the program, that's where the VI SBDC business development or business, I think we call them business advisors or counselors can help with that. They can certainly look at your financial data, sit down and talk with you about your business. They are well-trained and well-experienced in all types of businesses and understand specifically the Virgin Islands market. So highly encourage you to make use of them. So that's it for this presentation. If you have a few moments, we would appreciate it if you can give us some feedback, SBA.gov/feedback, or you can use that tag there, or take a picture of it with your phone. It'll take you straight to it. Just answer a few quick questions on our presentations on whether this was helpful for you. We would appreciate it. But with that, what I'll do is I'll just open it up to any questions that people may have about the 8A program. And then if we don't have that many questions about the program, we can answer questions about anything related to SBA.
Well, Wayne, thank you very much for that very informative presentation. That's a lot of good information. And we have lots of people that have come along and they've been interested in becoming 8A certified. So you made it simple, clear, to the point. It does involve paperwork. And that's one of the things that people need to work on, really, is making sure that their paperwork is in order. So once they submit, things will run smoothly. So that's great. So do we have anybody that would like to ask a question online or would like to type a question in the chat? And while we're waiting for them to do that, I would like to share with you that we have a couple more webinars this week. As tomorrow evening, we have the next in the series of the AARP webinar series, and that's growing your business. It's more than just a money issue. And then on Thursday, we have the first in our series of webinars specifically targeted towards veterans. And that is the basics of entrepreneurship for veterans. It's part of our inclusivity challenge that's being sponsored by the ASBDC. And then next week, we begin our Grow with Google series. So you want to register for all of those on our website or from our Facebook page. And we look forward to seeing you in one of those webinars. Wayne, it looks like you might be getting an early start on your lunch. I don't see any questions in the chat.
Yeah, well, hopefully some people will just start applying. That's yeah, it's great. If there's no questions, that's fantastic. I'd like to see more 8A businesses down here. We do not have that many. I think we only have 2 or 3 right now that are active in the program. One recently approved over on St. Thomas, and then we have one that's been a long time, good one here on St. Croix. But we need more down here.
Well, one of the things I heard from a presenter that presented on 8A was that program is called the Millionaire Maker, because people get into that program and they're put in a position where they can really grow their businesses. And after that 9 years, they're well set in terms of business and they can compete with just about anybody on any playing field.
Yeah, it can be. In fact, before I came here, I worked with a business. This was a woman, and she was entering the 8A program, and she actually met a lot of the certifications. So she was able to meet 8A. She got certified as a woman-owned business. She was a minority, so she got the small disadvantaged business. She was a veteran, a disabled veteran, so she got the disabled veteran status. And I think she moved her headquarters to a hub zone. So she really got the 4 of a kind there, so to speak, on the certifications. And it was just her, and she was just getting started, and she had done a few things, but was still trying to learn the program. And I just saw something last week. This was like 6 years ago when I was working with her, but I just saw last week that she's now, her business has over 80 employees now, and she's doing really well. So yeah, it can make a big difference.
Well, I see hands, but they're clapping. I don't see any hands raised to ask any questions. So Wayne, on behalf of the Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center, our state director, Ted Gutierrez, and the staff on St. Croix and St. Thomas, and the people of the Virgin Islands, we want to thank you for your presentation. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week, Tuesday at 11 a.m. And the presentation is going to be Hub Zone certification. And that's another very, very important designation for a business to have. Okay, thank you very much. And everybody have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.